Let's all harden our hearts, guys. We're hardening our hearts. Do you have a hamburger? That'll harden, though that hardens your arteries. Welcome to Joel Reads Bible. I'm Joel, and I'm reading the Bible so that you don't have to. We are in Exodus. That's right, we're in the second book of the Bible. This is still early days, technically, but we are powering through, and it's hard, but we're getting there. Right now, we are in the midst of Moses bringing upon the land of Egypt pestilence. Plague after plague. It's really God doing it. It's not really Moses doing it, but Moses is certainly involved, and so is Aaron. And this is all in an effort to get Pharaoh to soften his heart, or at least finally let Pharaoh's heart be softened enough to let the people go sacrifice or worship in the desert, which is a euphemism for run away, run away. That's really what they want to do. They want to run away. So we're here in chapter 9. If you haven't subscribed, you got to do that now. Like the video and drop me a comment if you think that something I said was particularly silly or enlightening, or maybe I missed huge swaths of detail. Might as well put it in the comments. What else are you going to do? Sit at home and play your video games? Is that what you think you're going to do? Let me guess. Watch a movie? Is that what you're going to do? Or are you going to read the Bible for yourself? That's nuts. Leave a comment. You have nothing better going on. You're a shut-in. You're basically a shut-in. So here we are, Exodus chapter 9. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go and continue to hold them back, the hand of the Lord will bring a terrible plague on your livestock in the field, on your horses and donkeys and camels, and on your cattle and sheep and goats.'" Again, not listing the women with the cattle anymore. I think we're moving ahead, Already we're working towards equality for women. I'm sure they're not quite equal yet. There's no women at all happening in this part of the story. Moses' wife is somewhere. We don't know. But she just was there to make Gershon, right? That doesn't Gershom? Whatever. Gershwin? Was he a jazz composer? But at least they're not listed with property anymore. So we're happy about that. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and that of Egypt, so that no animal belonging to the Israelites will die. This is curious to me, because I understood in the previous chapter when he was like, we're not going to send the flies to Goshen, where the Israelites live. I was like, okay, that's the slave quarters. These people are slaves, right? But now the slaves own livestock. Excuse me? The slaves own stuff? The slaves, do they have are they proper slaves? I mean, they've been beaten up a lot. They've been treated very poorly, but they seem like they're more like employees. How do you own something as a slave? I don't understand that. You are owned. So how do you own? That might just be me not sure what they mean by slave. Are these indentured servants? The Lord set a time and said, "Tomorrow the Lord will do this in the land." And the next day the Lord did it. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one animal belonging to the Israelites died. Pharaoh sent men to investigate and found that not even one of the animals of the Israelites had died, yet his heart was unyielding, and he would not let the people go. So he checked up on it. Just like God, he had to go and send someone. And lo and behold, what God said came true. But he's still not relenting. And this is nice that they don't they took more time with the plagues earlier, but now they're just kind of powering through. I guess there's no way to reverse that. So there's no reason to have the addendum of, well, we'll reverse it. We'll bring all the animals back to life, because Once a mammal, an animal, a living person, whatever dies, they don't come back to life. I mean, that's just doesn't happen. It's just not reasonable in any stretch of the imagination. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Take handfuls of soot from a furnace and have Moses toss it in the air." Okay, Moses gets to play now. Then have Moses toss it into the air in the presence of Pharaoh. It will become a fine dust over the whole land of Egypt, and festering boils will break out on men and animals throughout the land. It's a little bit inconsistent in the sense that, like, God can just be like, we're going to kill all the livestock. So if you don't do this, all the livestock will be dead tomorrow. But for boils, he's like, I think we need a little bit more pageantry because God loves his pageantry. He's like, Moses, go throw some soot up in the air. No, I think it'll look cool. Just throw the soot up and then like boils. You know what I mean? Just like boils, it'll become, and I think I'll make it, throw it up and it'll become a big cloud, like mist will go everywhere and then boils. Do that. Moses is like, why don't you just materialize boils on these people? Don't ask questions. Just do it. It's cool. It's cool if you do it that way. It's cooler than just me making boils. If there's the dust cloud and it just came from one handful of soot, do you want to do magic or not? Do you want it? No, Moses, do you want to do the magic move or not? So they took soot from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. Moses tossed it into the air, and festering boils broke out on men and animals. That's interesting that it's avoided the children and the women. It seems like it's avoiding those ones. They're going to get it. Not the women so much, but I have a feeling the kids are in for it. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils that were on them. They're like, we're too sick. And on all the Egyptians. All right, maybe it was women and children too. Maybe they just mentioned the men. And then they're like, no, it was all of them. But why mention women? They don't matter. All the people, the men and the animals, they got boils. The women and all of them did. But I didn't think that it was necessary to mention women and children because, women... Well, I guess they could be listed under animals. We thought that we had seen some progress, but not so much. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said to Moses. So now this is distinctly listed as the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and many people may say that this is the first time the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, because this is the first time it says it directly. But as you know, before all this started, God said, I will harden Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh's heart became hard. You don't have to do that math if you don't want to. Okay? Then twice Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Fine, but there were still 3 times that it happened to become hard after God had said he was going to do it. But fine. Don't attribute it to God. Don't attribute it to God. We don't need to assume that. Finally, God hardens his heart. It's still why? Why? To torture the Egyptians more? Then the Lord said to Moses, get up early in the morning, confront Pharaoh and say to him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go so that they may worship me. Or this time I will send the full force of my plagues against you and against your officials and your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with a plague that would have wiped you off the earth. I mean, I caused the famine that almost killed everyone just a few years ago. But I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. That's it. That's the good, guys. That's the good. I guessed it. I guessed it back in Genesis. I guessed that God is not doing these things to save lives or to keep his Hebrews happy. None of that matters because it doesn't happen. The Hebrews are being abused. People are dying left, right, and center. There's plagues all over Egypt. All of Egypt became destitute during the famine. It was to give God the opportunity to show his immense power so that his name will be proclaimed all over the earth. And that has currently been happening. But I don't know if it was happening then. I mean, the Egyptians didn't even write this down. If God was really doing a good job here, the Egyptians, we would read about this in Egyptian literature. They would become Hebrews. They would be like, we're all circumcised, You'd see mummified foreskins all over the place or something like that. But no, there's actually no record of this God beyond these Hebrew texts. And if there are, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think there are any records that go, oh, by the way, let's talk about this God who caused this huge issue down in Egypt. That God was powerful. Makes it seem like maybe it didn't work out and all of this pain and suffering that you were causing so that you could show your power was a waste of time. You still set yourself against my people and will not let them go. Well, and you've set him against them, so it's not all his fault. Therefore, at this time tomorrow, I will send the worst hailstorm that has ever fallen on Egypt from the day it was founded till now. Give an order now to bring your livestock and everything you have in the field to a place of shelter, because the hail will fall on every man and animal that has not been brought in and is still out in the field, and they will die. Okay. Is this a contradiction? All the livestock died. I'm sending a hailstorm. Bring in all your livestock. All the livestock is dead. In verse 6, all the livestock died. In verse 19, bring your livestock inside. You tell me this book doesn't have contradictions. You tell me this book isn't incoherent. The narrative is not making sense again. Sorry, but it's just not making sense again. But anyway, all the livestock that's already dead is going to die again if you don't bring it inside. Makes sense. Those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried to bring their slaves and their livestock inside. Yep. But those who ignored the word of the Lord left their slaves and livestock in the field. Are these slaves Egyptian slaves or are they Hebrew slaves? Because if they're Hebrew slaves, this is going to be a bit of an own goal, as they say in England. This is going to be God killing a bunch of Hebrews to prove a point. And God is not pulling off any of these things because there are still livestock. He's not even really following through. It seems like it's just words. I think this is why Pharaoh's not relenting, because he's like, well, he didn't really kill the livestock. We still have a bunch of livestock. Sorry. No, I still have a bunch out in fields. Then the Lord said to Pharaoh, stretch out your hand towards the sky so that hail will fall all over Egypt on men and animals and on everything growing in the field of Egypt. It's going to really aggravate their boils, isn't it? If you had a bunch of hail hitting your boil, ow! Picking up a big chunk of hail and just like setting it on a boil because it's cold, nice and cold against the hot boil. But, if it hits it, that hurts. When Moses stretched out his staff towards the sky, the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed down to the ground. So the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. Hail fell and lightning flashed back and forth. It was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. Throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both men and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and stripped every tree. The only place it did not hail was the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were. So it probably were Egyptian slaves. They're the ones that got all the hail. For some reason, there were men that were just like, oh, that's probably nothing. And oh no! And then had to run inside. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he said to them. The Lord is in the right. No, he's not. And I and my people are in the wrong. I don't know. They aren't in the right either, but God is not in the right here. Pray to the Lord, for we have had enough thunder and hail. The thunder isn't really your problem, though, is it? It's so loud. There's too much thunder. The hail is the worst part of it. But the thunder is pretty bad too. I will let you go. You don't have to stay any longer. Moses replied, when I have gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands in prayer to the Lord. The thunder will stop and there will be no more hail. So you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But I know that you and your officials still do not fear the Lord God. He's on to him. He's like, I know you're telling me this, but I don't buy it anymore. You've lied so many times, but I'll stop it. But just know that I'm watching you. I've got my eyes on you, Pharaoh, if that's even your real name, Pharaoh. The flax and barley were destroyed, since the barley had headed and the flax was in bloom. The wheat and spelt, however, were not destroyed because they ripen later. That's a great detail. They're like, they'll still have wheat and spelt, but unfortunately, the barley and the flax were completely screwed. Yeah, they were completely screwed by that because they had already headed and bloomed. So yeah, just a little detail there. They aren't going to go into another famine. God didn't send them into another famine, but he is the Lord of the earth. So it's point proven that God did cause that famine. Then Moses left Pharaoh and went out of the city. He spread out his hands toward the Lord. The thunder and hail stopped, and the rain no longer poured down on the land. It wasn't rain, it was hail. When Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had stopped, he sinned again. He and his officials hardened their hearts. Now the whole group did it. Let's all harden our hearts, guys. We're hardening our hearts. Do you have a hamburger? That'll harden. No, that hardens your arteries. But does that harden the hearts or just the artery? Whatever. I'm going to harden my heart emotionally speaking. So Pharaoh's heart was hard. It was so hard. Pharaoh's heart was so hard, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as God had said through Moses. Pharaoh, why? You're just bringing it upon yourself, apparently. God is involved. God's involved. God certainly is trying to. He's helping. He's helping screw with you. But look, we are 10 chapters in, and we're like, can these Hebrews not get out of there? Can they please not get out of there? We'll see what happens in chapter 10. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more fun. So please subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll see you next time.